The most dangerous words in the world of investing are "this time it's different." Now, for those of you that have been living under a rock, we're currently in a pretty turbulent, pretty scary marketplace, and I completely understand and empathize with those of you out there that are getting hurt at the moment. But for those of you who, like myself, would rather than running away from things for the next 2 years, like to step into the space, sit there, create a plan for myself and take advantage of the market when stocks are at 50 cents in the dollar and property prices are coming on sale, this is the video for you. Now, what I'm going to try and do in this video is explain the last 4 mid-cycle slowdowns so that you can stop looking at this as an isolated event and learn from the history so that you can make better and more confident decisions moving forward. Now, what I'm going to explain in today's video might be new for some of you, and for others that have been following Phil Anderson, Fred Harrison, Ray Dalio, or Warren Buffett for the last 10 years, this will just be old hat stuff. Now, what I've learned about every slowdown at this mid-cycle phase is we generally get a triggering event. We then get a period of decline, as well as a period of figuring out what the hell's going on, and then a period of recovery. Now, based on previous cycles, that period can last for anywhere between 6 months to up to 2.5 years. And then what we have, as I've talked about in previous videos, is the start of a new cycle, which is generally a strong bull run, increase in stock prices as well as property prices until we get to a more extreme event like the Great Depression or the 1990s recession we had to have, or the GFC we called it. The triggering event in 2020 was obviously the coronavirus. Now, this event, and the reason it's in red, is because it always feels very, very scary, very, very sticky and very spooky, and it leads to absolute fear. The reason we have a panic at this particular time is not because of the virus or the other triggering events I'm going to talk about in a moment, but it's because we've come out of a GFC or a Great Depression and we've gone into this ridiculous bull market where all of the cheap money that the governments and the banks around the world put into the system has gone into stock prices being overvalued, house prices being overvalued. And then when the triggering event occurs, we all freak out because things have been good for a while and it creates a decline. Now, in 2020, the coronavirus was the triggering event. And so far in the current market, we've seen about a 39% decline in stock prices. Now, who knows how long it's going to take this time around in terms of the recovery, but obviously governments around the world are stepping into this extremely hard right now, putting massive amounts of money and stimulus packages into the economy. And as we all know, that extra money that comes in that's being printed at the moment and being lent will result in higher asset prices down the line and higher property prices. Now, for those of you who this is the first time you've gone through a mid-cycle event or haven't been reading about this for years and years and years like other people, this might seem like an isolated event that is extremely scary. And if you've lost your job, or if you bought, stocks in 2019, for example, or you bought really expensive properties in Sydney or Melbourne in the last couple of years, then this event can be very scary. Now, if we go back one cycle to 2001 to 2003, the triggering event at that particular time, as you guys would all remember, was 9/11. We literally had a plane crash into the Pentagon and crash into the World Trade Center, which at the time was the head of the New York Stock Exchange, and has absolutely crippled the world with fear, and the world has never been the same. At the same time, or just before it, we also had the dot-com boom and the dot-com crash. Now, this is super important to know because there was a triggering event at that time which caused panic selling and mass hysteria. Now, in 2001 to 2003, we saw a 40.5% decline in the stock markets. Now, what's important to note that the stock markets generally get hit very, very hard in these mid-cycle events. In terms of property prices, we can generally see anywhere between a 0 to a 15% decline, unlike a GFC where on average the stock markets go down by 50 or 60% and the property markets around the world go down between 30 and 50%. So the big thing that you need to understand is there's a difference between where we are and a GFC style event. the difference mainly is that there's still money in the central banks and the reserve systems to bail us out at the moment, but all of the money they're spending now means that next time they need to bail us out, they won't be able to reduce interest rates and there won't be that money in the system to borrow to get us out of it. Now, this event between 2001 and 2003 took just over 1.5 years to get from top to bottom, and then obviously a period of time after that to recover. But for anyone that remembers that particular period of time, obviously property prices between 2001 up through to 2005 in some markets did extremely well, which the reason being all of that cheap money that's pumped into the system through the bailouts and things like that results in higher land prices, higher asset prices. Now, if we go back to the event before that, that was the 1980 to 1982 market. Now, at that particular time, that is when interest rates went up to 15% plus around the world and absolutely scared the shit out of people, and for good reason. A lot of people were caught with assets that they could no longer afford to hold. It also resulted in obviously it was to lower the hyperinflation that was occurring at that particular time. Now, between 1980 and 1982, we saw the stock market drop by 41%. Again, property markets around the world dropped between nothing and 15% during that time. And in that particular time, it took about 1.5 years to go from top to absolute bottom of the market, with the market, particularly the stock market, being bumpy all the way through that period. Another very distressing, triggering event that I've talked to my parents about as well. And then we go back to the mid-cycle slowdown before that, which was 1960. Now, for those of you that weren't born at that time like me, you've got to go back and read the history, but this was the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, very scary times. The world literally thought that either Russia or the US was going to blow everything up, and it was the arms race and a very scary time in history. At that time, I think the stock market in a period of 3 months dropped by about 19%, and it was really just a short-lived 4-month process in terms of going from top to bottom in those years. But what we've seen is that obviously the world from 1960 to now has become much more globalized, and that's resulted in markets syncing up. It's also meant that when America used to have a crash, or Australia used to have a crash, or the UK had a crash, or Asia or Africa had a crash, that market was isolated because a lot of the money in the market was dependent on the country and the people living there, as opposed to now where I can literally get on a laptop, I can buy currency, I can buy gold, I can buy stocks anywhere in the world I want to, I can buy crypto. In some instances, I can even buy property, and therefore we've got money moving around the world in different ways, which means bigger busts as well as more globalized events that freak everybody out. On the flip side of that, we also get bigger and larger booms because more money moves into the system. So I wanted to share this with you today because I believe that this too will pass. That yes, it's different in the sense that the coronavirus was the trigger. Yes, it's different in the sense that the whole world has been drawn into this. But the government bailout looks like the same as it did before. They're using all the things that Ray Dalio said they would do 18 months ago, which is reducing interest rates, providing massive government stimulus, helicopter money to those most in need, freezing loans, bailing out the banks, bailing out the big companies, putting much more money into infrastructure, printing money in terms of quantitative easing. So all of that activity is going to get us through this period. Whether it takes 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, I do have confidence that things will get better, that there will be a bottom reached at some point and there will be a future boom. For those of you who are more interested in this stuff and the history, go check out Phil Anderson's book, The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking. Go look at Fred Harrison's book, The Power and the Land and Boom Bust. Go look at Ray Dalio's book, Principles, as well as Big Debt Crises. These guys have been following this stuff for 40 years. I'm just interpreting and passing on their information. Please share this with someone that needs to see it, that's freaking out about where we are right now and can't see the future. And for those of you in a strong position, this is an incredible once in a 7 to 10 year marketplace where everything's on sale or gonna be on sale. And if you're in a strong, safe, confident financial position, you might be able to build a plan and take advantage of it. Just remember that cash flow in these times is absolutely key. So make sure you protect yourself, look after yourself. For some people, it'll be safer to sit on the sidelines for the next 1 to 3 years and slowly build a stronger position. For those of you that have been waiting for this, get educated and get stuck in. I wish you all the best. Please stay safe and hope your family's safe as well. Cheers.